Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so your day gig is coaching quarterbacks. So what are you up to right now, and how many beaches are you hanging out on?
Oh, I just got back from the beach. I just got back from Cabo, if that's your question. But, yeah, this is what I do. I did take a little break from quarterbacks for about 4 days and spend some time with the family. But, yeah, this is what I do every day. It's just quarterbacks, they fly in from all over the country, or we have our local guys. When the NFL offseason ends, organized team activities ends, they'll all come back in at different times, or we'll travel to them. So, yeah, quarterbacking basically all day long is what I do, and it's great. I get to stay around the game, and I get to be coaching the position that I love, and I get to be around some of the absolute best at the highest level. So it's great. I'm always learning, always pushing the younger guys, and also pushing the guys that are already considered some of the best in the NFL to be even better. So it's a lot of fun.
Do you want to be a team's quarterback coach at some point?
Oh, no. That job is, maybe when my kids are out of the house or something like that, I've thought about getting back into, team coaching. But for right now, I just have a lot of fun with my boys and being involved in their lives and their sports. And when you're a coach on a team, you have to sacrifice a lot of that family time. And I did a lot of that when I was playing in the NFL, and because I was chasing that dream. But now it's, I really enjoy being a part of my kids' athletic events and practices and all that. So, no, this fits me perfect right now because it allows me the freedom in the evenings to be around my boys and my family.
John, as the quarterback whisperer, BYU's situation at quarterback, it's an interesting one. There are several guys that will be vying for that starting job. Nobody has been announced at this point. Do you believe it's necessary to have a clear number one quarterback going into fall camp?
Oh, I think there are benefits to it because I think when you know who the guy is going to be, it allows the team to know, and it allows the chemistry to build with that guy. It allows that person a sure footing in his role where then he's a little bit more apt to feeling like he can take risks. He can step outside of his comfort zone at times to grow and develop, knowing I don't have to peek over my shoulder. I'm the guy, thick or thin. If I make a mistake early in a game, I don't have to wonder, is the coach going to pull me out? And having that established in the summer, everybody else gets to look at that the same way. All the other guys on the team, all the other receivers, the offense, it builds. Now, there are cases where you don't know who your guy's going to be, and you have to go into a fall camp, and there has to be a competition, and a lot of teams have to go through that process. And I've seen teams come out on a good end of that because they create competition. Somebody meets the challenge. Somebody steps up. The team senses it, feels it, builds around that guy. And what I think is best is if those two guys that are in the competition have experience. I think if you have quarterbacks that are inexperienced in a competition, you are taking away from the growth and development of each one of them, because if one guy's a clear-cut starter, you get to give him all of the reps with the ones. But if you have two inexperienced guys, you're trying to build experience and create chemistry with the ones, and that's really hard to do simultaneously.
Former BYU and NFL quarterback John Beck is on BYU Sports Nation. So let's talk about how that works with BYU's situation this summer, because you have the potential incumbent in Tanner Mangum, who started the majority, obviously, of 2015, and then last year before getting injured. You have Bo Hodge, who started 2 games, and physically is kind of a unique guy on the staff. Joe Critchlow started the last 3. So how do you think that works during the summer where these guys are trying to lead the team? And then you have other guys, like you said, haven't played yet but want to be in the mix. So how do the voluntary workouts work out when you don't have a number one quarterback? Who's leading that?
Well, I'm sure each one of them in their own mind says, this is going to be my year. I'm going to be the guy, and they're trying to take the reins and step up, which, that part's healthy because each guy, when he goes to bed at night, knows, hey, if I want to be the guy, I need to be maximizing my days. I need to be putting in time in the film room, putting in time on the field. So I think that part's healthy, that all these guys are competing. Somebody doesn't just get to be comfortable and, maybe slack a little bit in the summer, but they're all going to push themselves. The tough part is are people separating a little bit? Is one quarterback grabbing 2 or 3 wideouts and going back in the evenings and throwing extra? Because if that quarterback's building chemistry with those guys, but then he doesn't end up being the starter, what happens when those receivers then all of a sudden become entrenched with the starter and then that guy's telling them things just a little bit different based off of what he likes. So those are the things that can happen. I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but I'm saying that can happen. So with each guy having some starts, I think it creates maybe in the summer a little bit of a curious situation of, well, how is it going to play out when all of a sudden are certain guys have an allegiance to a certain quarterback? But I think it goes back to, hey, the way I look at it is Tanner Mangum is going into his senior year. I don't know what the coaching staff is going to do, but if I was the coach, I would say, look, here's the guy with the most experience. If this guy can win the job, this is probably better for us because of all the experience that he's going to have going into it. And not that they're leaning towards wanting Tanner to have the job, but I would just say from all the things that I've experienced in my football time, having a guy with more experience, it's a benefit to have him at the helm because of all of the factors and situations that can come up in a game. Experience always helps. But that being said, it sounds like they're going to open it up to the younger guys as well, and then it's the best man wins.
That actually is a perfect lead into something we actually discussed yesterday on the show, and it was about Tanner Mangum. What do you think Tanner needs to do to regain favor as the BYU quarterback?
Well, I think it starts with Tanner. I try to tell this to quarterbacks that I've seen that have gone through difficult situations, and I say this because of some of the things that I experienced in the NFL. You know, when you go play in a really difficult situation and ideal things don't happen and you're constantly fighting this, like, you know, players are rotating everywhere around you. You're shuffling the lineup. You got a guy 1 week. You think you're going into a game with a guy, and all of a sudden he's not ready to go yet. You don't have him, and you're not 100% healthy. And, you know, you're kind of the offense is changing week to week based on the personnel, and you're trying to get comfortable, but you just can't. That's a really hard situation to play in. And a lot of guys walk away from situations like that with scars, like essentially. And you kind of have to treat those a little bit like an injury. You know, if somebody gets injured, you can't just say, oh, well, you're good tomorrow, right? There has to be a time where you have to work through that injury. It has to come back. You got to get it back to full health. And I think the same thing happens with quarterbacks. When they experience rough seasons, you got to step away and you have to sit there and work on yourself and all the things that you just went through, because scars can happen. Chad Pennington used to say this all the time. When he would see some young quarterback burst onto the scene in the NFL, he would say, that's great. That's great that guy's having a great season, but I want to see how that guy plays 3 to 4 years from now when he's had to deal with a bunch of scars. He's like, the true test of a quarterback is how can a guy play after he's been scarred here or there from the NFL. And I think that happens in college football, and I think Tanner had a little bit of that. I think Tanner has what it takes, but some of the scenarios were just not ideal, and he had to play in a lot of difficult situations with things shuffling around him, and a lot of people outside were probably saying, well, what happened to Tanner Mangum? Why did it seem like he regressed? Well, here's what I'm saying is he experienced a situation that can produce scars, and you have to battle through those, and then you have to heal. So I think this year for Tanner, it's about going inside of himself, working on some of the things, so when he steps back out on the field this year, he can be his best self, and he doesn't have to carry around this weight on his shoulders that he thinks he has to. He needs to be able to drop it all, move on. It's a whole new year. You just move forward, and I think that's what he needs. And if I had a chance to talk to him, that's exactly what I'd say. Say, Tanner, look, buddy, a lot of guys go through that. Like, don't judge yourself because last year was crazy. Like, it was crazy for everybody. Ty Detmer thought he was going to be able to come back to BYU and coach there for a long time. He's our Heisman Trophy guy, and he's not even there anymore. Like, sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you think. And sometimes you can get these little scars from it, and you got to work through them, but you got to be able to just go forward using everything that you can, and all the great player that's inside you needs to come out on the field.
We're talking with John Beck. Put on your scuba gear. He's going deep on BYU Sports Nation. Give us an idea of what it's like to be on a team that underachieves, like the 04 team. You're 5-6. You didn't make a bowl game. You wanted to. It was a tough schedule. This team similarly has kind of that 4-9, like worst season in 50 years, all this stuff, right? So in 05, you go 6-6, but you get back to a bowl game. You took a step forward. That's the hope for this season. So what did you guys do in that offseason that maybe this team could do to get back to a bowl game?
Well, I remember that offseason because it was new coaching staff, new offense. Every job is up for grabs. Like, I remember at the end of the year banquet, I was awarded the Offensive Player of the Year. But at the same time, the job was open for competition because of the new coaching staff. So I remember when I got the award, I just tossed it in a bag, like a box. Like, I don't care about this thing. Like, Like, look what's happening. I'm not even the quarterback right now. I'm back in a battle. And I think that what has to happen is you just have to sit there and just put your nose to the grind. And every single day say, I'm going to get a little bit better. I have to find a way to get better today. And when you're learning a new offense, you got to put the time in. You got to put time in the film room. You got to walk out on the field. I can remember going out on the field just by myself and imagining a defense, imagining a new offense, and just walking through the plays based off of what I saw the Texas Tech quarterbacks doing. And, you know, Coach Doman was giving me things that, okay, well, we're going to do it this way. We're going to tweak this a little bit and trying to visualize it. Like, you just got to put in those moments. And it's called deep practice. It's when you're doing things by yourself without anybody else there, and you're figuring the things out that you got to figure out to become a better player. I think those are things that need to happen. And I look back on that 05 season. We lost in overtime to TCU, overtime to Utah. We lost to a San Diego State team we never should have. I mean, that could have easily been a 9, maybe a 10-win season, just a few plays here or there. And, you know, the work that you put in the offseason, it's so a 6-win season can be an 8 or 9-win season instead. That's what that hard work is for.
All right, John, last thing before we let you go. Bowl game, yes or no for BYU this season?
Yeah, I think so. It's 6 wins, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a for sure. I think you look at the schedule, yeah, there's games that, you know, we're going to walk in as the underdog. The opening game, you know, we're going to walk in the underdog of the Washington game, the Wisconsin game. I'm sure they're going to do the same for the Boise game, but I think the Boise game should be a game that the guys feel like they can win. I mean, I love the mentality of I don't care who we're playing, I think we're going to win. I think that players got to have that mentality. You got to walk in there saying, fine, make us a 14-point underdog, make us a 17-point underdog, and we're going to go out there and try to steal this thing. But I think there's those toss-up games that, you know, people might say, all right, this is a toss-up. I think you got to go out there and battle through some of those toss-ups and steal a couple of those. And the games that you're supposed to win, you should win. I think that's the mark of a really good football team is when you're playing in a game, you should go out there and you should beat your opponent and you should have successful plays, get in the end zone and beat them. You do it. And you don't stumble and you don't have a game where you don't show up and, you know, you walk out there and you be consistent in those games. And I think if BYU does that, I think they should for sure go to a bowl game. John,
we appreciate the insight. Tremendous stuff. It was way better than anything Dennis Pittock could give us. So thank you.
I know. You know, sometimes, Dennis, I'm surprised you guys even bring him on the show.
Me too.
It's mediocre at best.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
All right.